my honor to present the guitar player who I've basically known almost 2/3 or 3/4 or 4/5 of my life. My co-guitar player and Twisted Sister, one of my oldest and dearest friends, Mr. Eddie Ojeda. Hey, Eddie, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
So you are in Nashville now.
Correct.
Where every damn musician apparently has moved.
Exactly. All the guys from LA and New York are moving here.
Yeah, and you kind of got down to Nashville thinking, oh, I'm going to meet all these musicians, and then COVID happens.
Yeah, it sucks. So there goes the parties. I've only been out twice to meet other players. I do everything virtually now. At least that's the good thing about the internet. We can actually do this, see somebody, talk to them. But I don't know what would have happened if this happened in the 60s, man. It would have been,
we wouldn't be happy.
We were smoking a lot of weed. That's what would happen.
Well,
you would think you heard somebody.
That's a good segue to the beginning of this. So Eddie and I have been friends since high school. And so Eddie, since you and the rest of the band rely on me for dates, like, hey man, what happened when? Ask JJ,
Yep, you got the history book there.
I got the history. So I pulled out the history of when we met. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I've established. I know for a fact that I was still at Brandeis High School in January of '69 because I went to see Johnny Winter at the Fillmore East as a guest of a guy from my chemistry class, Ricky Paul, whose brother Steve Paul managed Johnny Winter. I know for a fact I was still at Brandeis in January of '69. However, Led Zeppelin played their first show at the Fillmore on January 28th, 1969, and I believe they kicked me out of Brandeis and put me in G-Dubs in February of that month.
Right.
And you and I met each other.
Right.
Where exactly, who introduced us, or we just said, you got long hair, I got long hair? How did that go?
Well, yeah, that was kind of it. Remember, there was always little crowds, like the long hair hippie crowd, and then there was like, the militant black guy crowd, and there was there was always little niches. So I think
the stoner crowd with Jimmy
gravitates to see who was smoking weed in the bleachers. That's where you found all the hippies. And then the other guys were shooting up on the other side, the heavy duty guys.
Right. Let me just say this for most people who don't understand. George Washington may be the only public high school with a football field.
Exactly. Beautiful.
With bleachers, with the bleachers up
right.
in Washington Heights on 191st Street. And if you went to the bleachers, the hippies would be on the right side smoking weed, and the heroin addicts would be on the left side selling heroin. And then you would trade the drugs in the middle, if I'm not mistaken. Like you did like a little cross-pollination.
Acid trades. In the middle.
Acid trade. So we met probably outside one afternoon.
Like, yeah, it just happened, because everybody, you saw guys with long hair, you just went over, and that's just how it happened.
And pretty soon after we met, like really soon after we met, we put that stupid little band together with George.
We played the talent show.
What was they called? Powder? We called ourselves
Powder. Yeah. Who knew? It's still kind of a cool.
It's still kind of a cool name.
There'd be a lot of powder around soon.
So we called ourselves Powder, and we rehearsed. Where in Terry Tunick's up on 157th Street. Who was that? Was that your place or Terry's?
So lazy, he had his drums in his bedroom. But God forbid, this guy, like Terry Tunick was such an amazingly talented guy, but you have to leave your house, and that's the problem why he never made it. Because if you want to make it famous, you have to leave your house at some point.
And he just wouldn't leave his house.
And then the day of the show, he busted our balls. We had to pay for him for a cab.
You're 100% right. Now, let me, if I'm not again, didn't the first song we tried to play was Good Times, Bad Times from Zep 1? Does that ring a bell? Or was it Jumpin' Jack Flash?
It was Jumpin' Jack Flash. I think we were allowed one song before we got killed.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I remember we did, but Terry did do the Bonham stuff.
Yeah, he was great.
Well, really good.
Yeah, he had it down excellent. I mean, he was an amazing drummer, super talented guy.
Yeah, so it was you, me, George Bartos, and Terry, and then we went and we played a talent show
Carlos Diaz sang vocals.
Carlos Diaz was the singer.
Yeah.
Okay. Carlos Diaz was the singer, and we played one song and pretty much got booed off.
Yeah, didn't go over. It was a real, like, more of a Jackson 5 crowd.
It was. We lost to a Jackson 5 cover band.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact.
They did good, though. They did pretty good.
Yeah, but then what happened? We went up to Mr. Harding's office.
Right.
And what happened with Terry?
He fell out the window. He took Quaaludes. That's it. Right after the show, he took like 3 Quaaludes.
He was so depressed over what happened.
I don't think he gave a shit. I think we played the song well. It's just that, they weren't into rock. And then he went up to complain. He used to call Mr. Harding a goat. He'd say,
right, the goat, yeah.
And then he just went and fell out the window, which is like 2 stories.
So we looked out. We looked out the window, and he was on his back, laughing, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. Like, I just remember he didn't get hurt because, like, all those Quaaludes was kind of loose. So good thing it was after. That was after we played, because he wouldn't have been able to play.
Yeah, I guess not. So then here's my question to you. If my first time at the Fillmore was to see Johnny Winter in January of '69, what were the first rock concerts you went to?
Wow. The fact that you mentioned Zeppelin, and I think you were there too, and I didn't know you at the time. Well, remember they played the Pavilion at the World's Fair?
Yeah, the following summer, they played the Pavilion.
Right. I saw them there. And I actually knew one of the roadies, a guy named Melvin, that I used to sneak into all these shows with. And he was trying to get me to steal Jimmy Page's Les Paul. Because I was hanging out and nobody cared. It wasn't like a big security thing. So I just went and he was helping them unload, helping Zeppelin. I'm like, cool. I was trying to meet one of the guys, but so he put his Les Paul down and says, hey, man, take the Les Paul. We'll sell it later. I'm like, I'm not going to steal a guy's guitar. You already mine. And it's a good thing because this guy's friend, or whatever he was, this gigantic Swedish guy, came out of the truck. And I said, he would have killed, like if somebody tried to steal that guitar, they would have got killed.
Eddie, I was at the Pavilion, by the way.
I know you were.
I was, but I guess did we not see each other that night?
No.
So what happened was I threw a party in my apartment. What a shock. Like before we went to see Zeppelin, and it was an acid party, right? So everybody was wasted on acid. And Steve, remember my girlfriend Gail at the time?
Sure, I remember.
Yeah. So Gail's brother Steve took so much acid that he was afraid to leave the house. So he wouldn't leave the apartment. He sat under the kitchen table in my kitchen, and he said, "Don't touch me because I'm an orange, and if you touch me, I'm going to turn into a glass of orange juice."
Good shit.
He was a good shit. So we left him. We left Steve, and me and Gail and maybe Victor Weiss and a couple other burnouts all went out to the Pavilion to see Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And we come home at 4:00 in the morning, and Steve is in my living room with my dad smoking a cigar and drinking scotch. And my father goes, "It's very nice of you to leave your friend sitting under the kitchen table."
Oh my God.
And Steve said, "Your dad's a real nice guy. He found me under the kitchen table." And
what condition was he in when he found
well, Eddie, tell me, how understanding were my parents back in those days?
Unbelievable. It was great. They were very cool. I mean, nobody had parents like that. We just had parents that beat us up. That was part of life. Every day an ass whooping was just, like a necessary thing.
My father used to walk in the room and go, the room
was cloudy in there sometimes.
It was the 60s, man. But Eddie, go back a year. Didn't you see Cream at Hunter College?
Yes, I did.
In '68, you saw Cream. So how was that? How did that happen? Who'd you go with?
I forgot who I went with. I know that guy Melvin. I used to always bump into him, sneaking into shows. And I think, stop. Can you hear that?
Yeah, loud. Yes. Yeah, I shut my cello. Okay, go ahead.
So, I can't recall who I went with.
But you saw him at Hunter, though, correct?
Yeah, at Hunter. So anyway, I think I told you this too, but a lot of people went up to the stage because and I happened to jump on the stage and then get behind the PA system. And there was a couple of guys that tried to follow me, but they got thrown off. And for some reason, I just kind of went into like a siesta position and just was looking at Clapton behind the PA system. I don't even know how I had the balls to do that. And the guy was going to throw me out, but for some reason, Eric Clapton waved it and like, it's okay. So I saw the whole thing. I saw Cream. I was actually on stage behind the PA. And a lot of for the first 5 minutes, I was worried I was going to get thrown off. But then for some reason, everybody else got thrown off. But I had made it behind there. Nobody else made it back there. So I just sat there. And then Clapton just waved off the guy who came to throw me out. He said, no, it's okay. So that was amazing. I mean, who gets this Cream? And that's
was that your first rock concert, or had you?
No, it wasn't my first one. It wasn't, because I saw a bunch of people. It was a real easy place to sneak in. Real easy. Yeah. So it was. I used to just sneak in. I used to just walk in, like the back way, and it was amazing. But that wasn't my first. But that was an incredible experience. And I'm surprised nobody threw me off the stage. The bad part was I was always kind of worried somebody was going to throw me off at any minute. But I stayed there the whole show.
I think it's interesting that guys like you and me, street guys in New York, we always found ways to hustle into shows and meet people. I got to know this dude who ran security at Carnegie Hall back in 1970. And me and my friends got to know him, and he would let us walk into Carnegie Hall through the back way on 56th Street, then take us up in an elevator and then walk across the catwalk into the theater. We each threw him like $10 or whatever. And, we saw Stevie Wonder, James Taylor. I saw some amazing shows.
Stevie Wonder together.
We may have seen them together at Carnegie Hall. We may have snuck in together there. I don't know. But so before this, you never ever told me, so this is going to be the first time you're ever going to explain to me, what was the catalyst for you to pick up a guitar and play a guitar? Like, what was the part that set it off for you?
Well, like so many people say, I was always interested in the guitar. But obviously the Ed Sullivan Show, the Beatles, had an influence on a lot. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't have become musicians if it wasn't for that first show on Ed Sullivan in America. 70 million people watched.
But did you say to yourself at that point, or did a couple of years go by? And
no, well, I was watching it with my parents, and I told them that's what I want to do for a living, and they just all started laughing. Support, family support, like you, yeah. But in a way, them putting me being unsupportive, kind of said, "Well, I'll show you." So it kind of drove me to, learn how to really play.
Okay.
That was part of it. And, songs like, by the Animals, House of the Sun was one of the first cool things to learn, along with Smoke on the Water. Like
what about You Really Got Me?
You Really Got Me. If you could play those songs, you were the man, So I just kind of emulated what I heard on records and kind of went further and further with it, and then took it serious.
So were there a lot of kids in the neighborhood that you played with? It was easy to find other guys to play with?
Not at that time, not in that neighborhood. When I moved like 2 blocks away. Then I met some guys from Music and Art, because a guy lived in my building and he was on the same floor. So, and he was a sax player, amazing artist, Adrian Otero, that was his name. So we used to hang out together, and I used to go up and meet him over at Music and Art. And I said, man, I'd love to go to school here, but my grades weren't good enough. So, I was kind of lazy then. I was just, as long as I was passing, I was happy. But that's where I met musicians, guys from Music and Art.
What's interesting about that period of time in our lives is that the guys we met who are our age all loved the same thing. It's not like today where it's all divided up. Like everyone just loved everything, Right. So me growing up on the West Side, and you've heard me talk about them, all the guys I played with were basically Puerto Rican guys in the neighborhood who all loved Beatles and the Monkees and everything else. But it was Carlos Avalares, Hector Melendez, Freddie Rivera, the Echeverry brothers, these are the guys, Orlando Vieira, these are the guys I played in bands with. Nobody thought, you know, you're Puerto Rican or you're black, or just like, this is all we did. We hung out at school and we all listened to this music afterwards. In fact, I was at the Echeverry's house the day I heard Sergeant Pepper, you know, for the first time. I was at their apartment. You know, I will never forget that. So what about when you bought your Gibson ES345? What did you have before that, and what led you to buy that guitar?
Well, at that time, you know, I was using like I started with a Japanese guitar, Kent. I still have it.
We all started out with Kent or Sakova or Sakovas.
Then if you were lucky, you moved up to a Hackstrom. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
The Hackstrom was like getting to the professional level, you know.
That's true.
You know, for $40 you bought a guitar.
Yeah.
You know? And they were all Kents down on, you know, in the Midtown area, or Times Square area. There was a ton of places that had it.
Pawn shops too. Everybody had them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then I tried that for a while, but I knew it wasn't, you know, I think I came across, I started watching this band called Fernando and the Four Aces. And that guy ended up being my drummer in SPX. They were like 4 or 5 years older than me. So I used to go to the basement. They used to rehearse on 136th Street. And the thing about music and art is in that neighborhood. That's why it was easy.
Yeah, 138th, right?
That's why it was easy for me to meet, go up to you know, music and art and hang out and meet like cool people that were into music. So, and the same thing, a lot of the guys I knew were Latin, Latino, you know, and they all played, you know, but they were into the rock scene. They weren't into like the salsa thing. You know?
Right.
My brother was more into that. You know, I guess I skipped, you know, the 5-year difference. But this guy, Fernando and the Aces, they were doing the Ventures and all this cool stuff. And they had the Fender Pro Reverb amps. I remember the first time I saw the amps, you know, it was like, and Alan Diaz had Ludwig drums with, it was like, they were, I mean, at the time I was blown away. They sounded great, especially reverb. That's the first time I heard reverb. Wow, man, that really makes the guitar, you know, without being high, you know, it sounded like you were stoned because it sounded so good. So it was, you know, and he played the Venture stuff and it sounded, I mean, I don't know how great they were, but to me, they seemed amazing.
Right.
So that's,
and it was inspiring to you, is the bottom line.
Definitely. And that's the first time I played a real guitar. Like he had a Fender Jaguar, no, a Jazzmaster. And the rhythm guitar player had a Hackstrom, you know, but they had real gear.
By the way, most people don't realize, but the Jazzmaster was the most expensive Fender back in those days. It was more expensive than a Strat, more expensive than a Tele. So when I first started seeing guys play Fenders, they were playing Jazzmasters. Like, wow, all those switches and buttons and dials and everything.
I don't know why that, you know, eventually, like we all know, the Strat took over, but yeah, that was the guitar to play. And, you know, then guys, they didn't play with distortion. You know, they just did all the real pop stuff. Right. So that was the first time I played like a Fender, like a real nice guitar. And I said, man, my guitar is a piece of shit. And I was able to play on it, but it just, so then I finally said, well, I'm going to save up. And I worked in a hospital, St. Clair's Hospital, right off 53rd Street, like right off 9th Avenue. I worked there as an orderly for the X-ray department. Worked there for 2 years. But I was able to save up enough money to buy a twin reverb and a Fender stereo that I bought from Jimmy's Music.
Jimmy's on 48th Street.
Yeah, across
from Manny's,
right.
Down by 6th Avenue. The same person. He was not, is the same guy I bought my Tele from because Henry was a prick.
Henry, yeah, if you weren't a star, Henry
he didn't want to know you.
No, he didn't want to know.
So you bought your stuff at Jimmy's.
Jimmy's, yeah.
I had no, okay, that's cool. Well, Eddie, let me just say this to you, just so you get, when we played the Fox show in the morning show, and we stood on that stage, you know, that stage was exactly where Manny's was, and Jimmy's was exactly across the street from that stage.
You told me that when we did the show.
Isn't that crazy?
It blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that.
We're standing on the spot where it all started for us.
Yeah. And that place, if you hung out there, eventually you'd see somebody. You know, I got Mitch Mitchell's autograph there. I got Jimi Hendrix autograph there.
Do you remember what you paid for this stuff?
I paid for my Gibson stereo $370, which at the time was like $1,500. It was a lot of money. You know, it's like
a lot more than that, like $3,000 now,
yeah,
if not more.
And I almost bought a Country Gentleman. I'm glad I didn't, because the Gibson stereo was very adaptable to a much cooler way down the road.
Right.
And Danny Cowell, remember Danny Cowell from the Blues Project?
Blues Project. Yeah.
He used to play an ES340. I used 35, I think. So that inspired me to buy
okay.
that guitar.
Right. And you bought a Fender amp.
And I bought the Fender.
Did you buy a fuzz box at the time?
Not till later on.
So what was this? Was this 1966 or 67 for you?
I think it was on 67.
67. So, yeah. All right. When you saw Cream, that was the first time or only time you saw Cream live, correct?
Right. I'm pretty sure I already had it. I had to give some stereo by that time.
And what did you think? So what was the first Cream album? Was it Fresh Cream or Disraeli Gears that you heard?
Fresh Cream.
And what did you think of Clapton at the time?
I thought it was amazing, you know. Because I think I saw Cream with the Brooklyn Fox, with the Who, and the Young Rascals.
No, that was you saw that, but that was the Murray the K Easter show, 1967.
Yeah.
On 3rd Avenue, and it was the Cream, the Who, Mitch Ryder, right. The Young Rascals. You were one of those shows.
And the Young Rascals were like the headliners.
They were the headliner. Yeah.
Like they went on and did like a whole concert.
They did the most songs of anybody.
Right. The other bands just did 2 songs. Yeah. And I remember, like when I saw Cream and the Who, I was like, "Holy shit! What is that?" Like those big, the Marshall amps and the sound was just, it was mind blowing. You know, I don't think I was even high when I saw it. There might have been some weed around, but I don't know. But it was it just completely blew my mind. Like even the Rascals were great too, I have to admit. But you know, I just never, that was that English invasion was like amazing.
What was the first album you kind of like took apart to try to figure out how to play the guitar parts?
Guitar stuff? Well, I started with the Ventures, like most people. The Ventures, and then, you know, I learned the Animals, Kink stuff, you know. That's kind of like what put me down that road. So,
isn't it weird? Now, maybe I don't know if I can, if you feel this way. I was a huge Beatle fan, but I didn't particularly care about playing Beatles songs. Is that the same with you? I didn't care about playing Beatles songs one way or the other, and yet I was a huge super fan. The same thing or not? Or did you want to play Beatles songs?
Weird that you say that, because I didn't play Beatles songs either, as much as I love them. And I kind of played Beatles songs later on.
Yeah.
The first couple of things I learned were like, you know, the Animals, You Really Got Me, stuff like that, or Summertime Blues, Vincent Must Have Rocked Them, you know.
Okay.
And I remember when the Who, like when they started breaking everything, I was literally screaming, "Oh, give it to me! Over here!" You know, like I was trying to get to the front to, like, you know, throw it.
I'll take it. Give me the guitar.
And it was a Rickenbacker, and he just heaved it across the stage and pulled it back with the cable. And for some reason, I don't know, it sounded good. I don't know why. And then what's his name, beating the shit out of the drums, kicked them off the high rise.
Yeah, Keith. Yeah.
I mean, I think Eddie Whistle kept going. There was something going on that sounded cool. And I guess all the feedback from the guitar.
And we were young, man. And what did we know? You know, I asked Roger Daltrey years later how they could afford to smash all this stuff up, because, you know, they did 63 shows in 7. People don't understand there was 9 shows a day for 7 days. Right. 90-minute shows. And he said to me, this made sense. Pete had a Super Beetle, a Vox Super Beetle, I believe.
Huh?
Cream played Marshalls.
Yeah,
but the Who definitely, Townsend had a Vox Super Beetle. And what Daltrey said was, he said every time Keith took the neck and put it through the speaker, that hole, that was a hole. There was no speaker in there. So it looked like he was smashing a speaker at every show. Now, he did break guitars, but he didn't break amplifiers. That was the thing. He didn't break amps.
I'm surprised that Rickenbacker didn't break, because it's, you know, fairly delicate guitar.
Yeah, I think they had to go to Manny's and get a whole bunch of them. Seriously, I think I heard that they had to go to Manny's and get a bunch of Rickenbackers, because you know what? I can tell you how much money they were paid, because a friend of mine worked for the Robert Stigwood organization and told me, or either that or Sid Bernstein told me, but the Cream made $5,000 for the 63 shows, and the Who made 7,500 because they had a record out, because they had 2 albums out at the time, and Cream had 1 album out at the time. And so the Who were known, but still most people didn't know who the hell they were at all.
No, I didn't. I was kind of, I think that's when I first heard Cream. And I saw him at the Brooklyn Fox.
So did you get into the Blues Breakers album like I did, or did you just straight to Cream?
No, I went straight to Cream. I was like, as far as before that, I was into like the Blues Project. I was heavily into the blues, Live at the Cafe of Go-Go.
Yeah, that was big.
That was, and I thought, I was like, Danny Calv, I thought was the band.
What about the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Mike Bloomfield?
Oh yeah, I saw them. But I didn't see him with Paul Butterfield. I saw him when he had a band with Buddy Miles. I forgot.
Electric Flag.
Right.
I saw
the Electric Flag.
You saw the Electric Flag. I did not see them. Where did you see the Electric Flag?
Maurice.
Oh my God, you son of a bitch. You saw the Electric Flag. How was it? That album was great, man.
Yeah, I mean, those guys were big and the sound was big. It was mind blowing as a kid, I mean, now that kind of sound is more common, but at the time, I remember seeing the Temptations at the Apollo Theater, and as big as that place was, they only had 2 Voices of the Theaters, so
these are small PA boxes.
Yeah, small PAs.
Yeah.
So, that was just, that big sound was just amazing.
Wow. So we get through high school, and we go through the ridiculousness of our school and the riots that took place. I mean, again, without belaboring this or going into too much of history, we were in school during a very turbulent time in American history. Yeah. Anti-war, civil rights, the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, and then we had a huge problem in our school with kids the minority students feeling that they were being tracked into vocational colleges by the evil, racist, white supremacist Board of Education principal. They wanted a table in the lobby so that parents could decide whether or not their kids were being tracked into vocational colleges as opposed to academic colleges. And I got sucked up into that. And the demonstrations lasted, just to put this in perspective for all of you people who do not understand, the demonstrations started in September of '69 and went all year, almost every day.
All the kids in the hallway. I was in class every time they go by. And remember that big guy Scooch? He was a pretty famous kind of militant.
Yeah. Big
dude, He was always in the front.
Yeah, well,
he was a scary looking dude. Man.
Yeah, but in November of '69, Ed, you, me, Janice, George, and Kim went to see the Rolling Stones at Madison Square Garden.
Did they go too? I thought it was just us.
No, we were all in my apartment smoking hash.
I remember that.
Pretty fucked up, and Kim freaked out like she was hallucinating.
Yeah.
And she said, "It was good. It was good. It was. Thank you. It was good." Yeah. And she called her father to come and get her, and we all started walking down 91st Street, and her father comes up the street. "What did you do to my daughter, you fucking drug addict?" And you all go, "See you later," and you all went down to the garden to see the show.
Yeah.
And I eventually, I think, traumatized.
Didn't you go twice? Didn't you go 2 times?
I went 3 times. I went both evening and the matinee.
I just remember.
Did you go to all 3?
No, I just went to one. I think I only went to one with you alone. You and me. It could have been with everybody else. It's kind of.
What was your memory of the Stones at the Garden at that time? My memory was they were unbelievable.
Oh, it was amazing. They had those Ampeg amps. Once again, the big sound. You know what I mean? Like a wall of amps. Not little Fender. Look, Fender amps are great. We know that. But the stacks and those Ampegs. In fact, remember you bought one of those. You were the first person to have a big ass amp with the 412 cab. That scared the hell out of him.
Yeah.
It got me in
Well,
trouble.
okay. So Eddie and I, so we all go down to see the Stones. And for those of you who can't even picture this, before the Rolling Stones played the Garden, Hendrix and Cream both played in the middle of the Garden on the floor on the revolving stage.
Revolving stage.
And the PA was the public address system that hung,
Sports, yeah.
which sucked.
Sucked, yeah.
And when the stage turned and the amplifiers turned, you couldn't hear the band.
No, it sucked. I remember seeing you following the stage. Everybody was going like this with the circle, like going around. And for some reason, because your hair, you stuck out. You were like right in the middle of it.
Walking all the way around.
Yeah, everybody just kept walking with the band around the circle. It was pretty organized. I was up in the, cheap seats, and to look down and see like that whole floor turning around with the stage.
So then when you and I went to see the Stones, they had changed the rules at the Garden and they put the stage at the end. And it was the first concert that was a real concert with the stage at the end of the arena. And I got to tell you, man, I get chills thinking about how great that show was. They were unbelievable.
And what's his name was playing guitar too?
Mick Taylor.
Mick Taylor. Yeah. And he had that great feel, you know what I mean? And they just sounded, they were really powerful. I mean, there was I never heard their songs played like that.
They were great.
They were like as hard as nails, man.
So we get into the end of 1970. I drop out of school the day after the Kent State kids were killed as a political statement, which was May 5th, 1970. And then they left me back and I dropped out. You went back 6 more months to get your diploma?
6 months, yeah. And nobody was there.
Nobody was there. All our friends were gone.
Everybody was gone.
And then essentially what happened was, I go to Bermuda, you got this. So what happened between 70 and like 74 for you in terms of your band and your musical development?
I got involved with a band called SPX, if you remember.
Was that before El Toro, or were you involved with El Toro?
It was during. I was only with Toro for about 6 months, but things weren't happening. We were supposed to SBS was supposed to get signed, and it didn't happen. So then when Toro needed a guitar player, because they replaced the drummer, so me and the drummer from SPX joined Toro, and we played that place in Queens, the Coventry. Remember that place?
Yeah, Kiss played there.
Kiss played there, yeah.
Yes.
A lot of bands used to play there, and it wasn't too far, so some of the execs would come there to see bands and sign them. So it was another place to play, in the city, close to Manhattan, that you could play original stuff. So that was. And
you guys got a deal? You got a record deal?
We almost did with Don Kirshner. We were supposed to get it.
The big midnight special producer, Don Kirshner, famous TV guy.
That guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And Kirshner Records. So at the same time, he wanted to sign us in Kansas. And he would have signed us, but this guy that was representing us was not the perfect person to, represent us. Mm-hmm. He kind of, for example, we did an audition for Atlantic Records. I don't know if I ever told you this, but we did this audition, they recorded it like a live audition, and then he stole the tapes. I said, well, how are they going to listen to it if you steal the tape? And then Atlantic wasn't too happy about it, so that blew Atlantic. But then the Kirshner thing came up, and they wanted to sign us, and then it was like a really, really bad deal, and we kind of turned it down. But then I said to everybody, look, it's not like anybody's knocking down our door. I talked to everybody, let's just sign it. But at the time, when we went back for them to sign it, we had missed the opportunity. And they said, well, we don't want to do it now. I said, and that was it. So after that, Don Kirshner, I realized he became the Don Kirshner Show, and all the bands like Bad Company and stuff were playing. It was a huge concert every Friday night, I think that show was.
Yeah, Midnight Special. Don Kirshner presents Midnight Special. Huge shows.
Did you have another show called Don Kirshner's Rock Concert?
Oh, it may have been. Maybe it was. But maybe you're right.
Somebody else.
No, you may be right. You may very well be right with that. Yeah. But he became super famous as a
promoter. Yeah, it was like a late night show.
Yeah.
10 o'clock or 9 o'clock or something.
Right.
Not late, but.
So that takes you through when? 74, 7. So where were you, like before I called you in 75? what leading up to that summer, like what were you in any bands at that point?
Yeah, I was with a cover band. I was doing a lot of singing, and I did we just did all cover stuff. Played in Queens, and even SPX for a while. We did a bunch of cover stuff. We used to play a bunch of clubs in Queens a lot because you couldn't. There wasn't places to play in Manhattan. You had to go out to the suburbs.
So at one point, since Twisted started in '73, did I drag you to see the original band? In some
I saw
places?
you guys in the Bronx. I think you called me. So I was living in the Bronx at the time. And you called me. He said, "Hey, we're playing up in Frogs Neck." I remember that clearly.
It was called the Poorhouse, I think, the
Was
name
it?
of the club. Yeah, it was in the Bronx.
Was it City Island? I don't think it was City Island.
No, not back then. I
I
think
remember
it
it was in the Frogs Neck area.
okay.
And I was seeing this girl. I was in college. I was in Bronx Community College.
Right.
And I was seeing this girl named Peggy. She had a car because I didn't have a car. So because you needed a car to get out there. So I went to see you guys there. It was the first time. I think that was the only time I saw the band. And I think.
What did you think? What did you think?
I thought I was really impressed. I thought you guys sounded great. I mean, there wasn't many people there, which kind of sucked. But you guys were doing Bowie and all this, cool stuff at the time. And it sounded really good. I was very impressed. I remember going, wow, this is really good. John's come a long way here.
Yeah, wasn't I going out with that girl, Chris, or something like that?
I'm going out with she's pretty nice looking.
Yeah, she looked like Cher or something like that. I think that was
long hair.
really long brown hair. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah, she had a car too.
She had a Camaro or something.
You had to find somebody with a car at that time.
She was a Long Island Italian girl with a Camaro.
And good looking.
And
so
good
that
looking.
was like, that was hard to find.
It's funny. The band was broke, and we needed money. And Chris and I walked into a bank to get a loan on 96th and Broadway, and she dressed, like really great. She dressed super hot. And we walked into the First National City Bank on 96th Street, and the dude who walked up to us, his tongue fell out of his mouth, and he gave us $2,500 with no cosign.
That's what happens when you have breasts.
I mean, it was like a magic bullet. Oh my God, I was like, so I'm in a band. Yeah, it's okay. No, and we kind of, I could pay you back. Yeah, it's totally fine. Like that kind of thing.
I remember she was, like she said, she looked like Cher, and she dressed well. She just looked really cool. I mean, I remember she was very, very, very beautiful girl.
So that was the summer of '70. That was the summer of '75, which shortly thereafter, the band fell apart, and Mel and Keith stole the truck, and the whole story. I bought it back with, it was all smashed up. And I call you in late. I'm working at Terrace on the Park Caterers to make money.
Right.
Wearing a wig, and I'm a waiter at Terrace on the Park Caterers, and Kenny's working at Corvette's department store out in Jersey. And he calls me up. He goes, "I hate working at Corvette's." And I said, "I hate working at Terrace on the Park Caterers, man. It sucks." And he goes, "Well, let's try it one more time." So I called you and I said, "Would you be the guitar player?" Because I knew you, and I'd been dealing with idiots who I didn't know. And you went, "Who do you have as a drummer?" And I said, "We're getting a guy from advertising in Rolling Stone magazine."
Right.
And we got Kevin Grace.
Grace, yeah. Yeah, I'm like at the time SPX wasn't together. I was kind of a free agent at the so it was good timing. And I was kind of surprised because a lot of clubs, it was sort of turning into the DJ thing was starting to happen, and a lot of places it was just DJs playing the music. There was no live bands. Very few places that had live bands, and the places that did, you had to be in a famous band to play.
Right.
Like the cool places.
So we put the band together, and our first gig was at Popeye's Spinach Factory in Brooklyn.
Yeah. That went pretty good, I thought. I mean, the thing at the time was we were just playing stuff we liked. We didn't think about people.
Right. You sang half the songs.
Yeah, I sang a lot. Me and Kenny sang a lot.
Yeah. because God knows there's only so many Lou Reed and Mott the Hoople
Yeah,
songs I can
Lou
sing.
Stuff and we did the other. And you know, we were doing like split songs like Dave Mason's Split Coconut.
Oh, Split Coconut. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I think we did Celluloid Heroes.
We
Like,
did do Celluloid Heroes, and you sang Some Kind of Wonderful.
kind of,
You know, for those who don't know, Eddie's voice is really incredible, and it's very soulful, and it's R&B-ish. I mean, frankly,
very much.
you could be a singer in an R&B band, easy.
Yeah.
You know.
It was my thing. That's kind of.
Yeah, and we all grew up on Motown. Let's be honest. You know. I mean, if you took the Beatles, if you took all the music that the Beatles and the British Invasion created, and all the music that Motown created, and you took them out of the charts in the '60s, you got nothing left on the charts.
That's true. You know, I mean, I loved a lot of that stuff too. You know, I've always been very open-minded musically. You know, I prefer playing rock. You know, but as far as listening, there's a lot of stuff.
So we played from Halloween into 1976, and by January, my agent went, if you guys don't get a singer, you guys ain't gonna go much further, you know, and you got to do Zeppelin and stuff like that. And that's when Dee auditioned, and we brought him up to the Turtleneck Inn in Hunter Mountain. What was your reaction?
Well, when we first got him, he could do all the stuff off the first album, and you know, we loved that album. And there were, you know,
Zep 1. You're talking about Zep 1, yeah.
And there were songs that were playable. You know what I mean? You could pick them up pretty quickly, and you know, and you know, when he first auditioned, it was amazing because he really had Robert Plant down. You know, and I remember, like, from a distance, he looked like Robert Plant, like from almost a block away. You know, because he had the long hair, except when you got up close. But I remember, and he was really into like looking like him and acting like it was a heavy influence of Robert Plant at the time. So, yeah, I remember when we went up to Hunter Mountain. That was the first time I saw him. I mean, he had all the hair. Remember, he had that.
Remember that idiot kid who tried to sing Yes songs? I heard all good people.
We were rehearsing, and the guy stopped. He said, "Listen, we gotta stop that." We were having fun, like, letting him sing, because it was during the day. There was nobody there when we were rehearsing. We slept upstairs and hooked him up.
So we get the rehearsal. We hire Dee, and we have Kevin on drums, and we know they ain't gonna last too much longer, right?
Yeah, sort of, especially on some songs. Like American Band, you know, it starts with the drums, and he was you know, it was a bit late, like, and then
so
he was gonna die sometimes. I mean, he couldn't handle it.
But didn't you think when we were sitting around with Dee, like talking, that he was nuts? I mean, I tease him all the time about it. His freaking leg was going like, bah, 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 bah.
You know, at the time, I just knew so many weird people from high school and stuff that it didn't seem. I didn't think he was nuts.
You didn't think he was too caffeinated?
At the time, I didn't notice it.
Wow.
You know, but you know, like I said, we knew people in the '60s. People were like that everywhere. You know, people were just stoned. It was a stone age. You know, kind of stoners were.
And then we got Petri. Now,
did we get? Yeah,
Petri, April Fools, 1976. We got Petri.
I feel bad for Kevin because he was a nice kid. You know, really nice guy.
He was a nice guy.
But,
he was, look, he was one of the few ex-members of the band. Well, I mean, there were a bunch of nice guys, and Richie Teeter was a nice guy.
Yeah, but Teeter was just purposely there on just to get us to play gigs.
Yeah, he was doing a favor, you know.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to be in that type of band, you know.
Right.
Which, you know, but yeah, Kevin was, he just had a real timing issue. Plus, he just didn't have the stamina. He was a really skinny guy, and even, I mean, you could be skinny and play drums, but for some reason he used to just get so, he wasn't in shape for it.
And you know, and Tony was a good drummer, but Tony had personality issues. Let's be honest about it. Without getting too specific, there was real personality problems with him. which led to ultimately, his firing from the band.
Yeah, I remember that week too. He was playing really well, and his behavior was great. It was like, wait a minute, if you were like this all the time, you wouldn't be fired, But he had a thing where he used to just find trouble, man.
Did you have any idea?
And people in the crowd, he used to.
Yeah. Did you have any idea when Kenny told us that he had a drinking problem, that he had a drinking problem? Did you know that Kenny? I had no idea.
I knew I think from the beginning, he said that. I remember him going to AA meetings all the time. That's a sound check, and which was tough for him because it was tough for him being in a bar.
Yeah.
But he was the kind of guy that could drink a case of beer and you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know it. His playing was perfect every time.
He could play perfectly. It's like you didn't even think he was drinking. I guess he had a very strong tolerance. But he told me he was drinking he could drink a case a day.
Yeah, a beer a day. So here's the thing that we've never really kind of talked about. Dee talks about it a lot. He's talked about the fact that, he really started hating the bars after years and years of doing it. How much of it, after a while, for you became a grind? Like, because we never expressed it. We just did it every day. But there were just, was there some point where, just like you said, this is never ending, this is just a grind, this is too much?
Not really, because to me, that's, people say, how do you make it? To me, that was the best way to do it. You play, you play for a living. So now, there's a lot of times you have a day job. You never get time to be with the band or develop the band. It's something that's really hard to do just on weekends or evenings. I mean, there's people that do it, but I always thought that was the best way to do it. And then you can start doing originals and aim towards getting a deal. And so it never seemed like a grind, especially, sometimes it was, but the thing is that we got really big very quickly in the whole tri-state area. So we were playing packed clubs. So, it didn't suck.
It didn't suck either playing to people or the money we were making. That didn't
suck. Yeah, we started making good money and we were playing. That's what we were doing for a living, playing, which is something that we all wanted to live off of.
But at all those times that we almost did it and it fell apart, and almost did it and it fell apart, and almost did it not disillusion you at any time? I mean, I got disillusioned a couple of times. I mean, how much rejection can you stand? Did you?
Oh yeah, I think I did. But as long as we were able to keep working and make a decent, amount of money for the week, I was cool with it, and didn't let it bother me that much. And like I said, when we played, wherever we played, the place would be packed because we had become like as big as you can get on the club circuit. It was just one of those things.
What memories do you have of any particular shows during that period of time? We're talking from 76 to 81 when the band was, pretty much ruling the tri-state area. Any shows stand out to you from that period?
Fountain Casino was a great place.
Yeah.
Those clubs were like so big.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Fountain Casino is a catering hall in New Jersey, and it held up to 5,000 people. And we played there on Mondays, and it was only the biggest bands could play there on Monday nights. That was only the biggest. So it was Crystal Ship, us, White Tiger, I think was another one. There's probably Southern Cross maybe, but only the biggest of the biggest tri-state bands could play that room on a Monday night.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember they had, because it's a lot of those catering places have walls that you can open to make the place bigger and bigger, right, or smaller, depending on the size of the party. I remember they used to have to open up the whole place.
Yeah.
And that was as close to making it. It felt like we were a national act.
Well, we were playing in bigger rooms than national acts were playing.
Yeah, we were playing those rooms. Yeah, and it was great, and we were making good money doing it. So, it helped make it easy to accept the situation. So,
if I say to you, do you have any memories of Hammerheads in Levittown?
Oh yeah, it was another really good place. Great place. One in Levittown.
The one in Levittown. So you enjoyed that. What about the Mad Hatter in Stony Brook?
Mad Hatter was a lot of fun. Stony Brook was cool, and so was The one in Quag.
Mad Hatter and Quag.
Quag, yeah, that was a pretty wild place.
That was wild. That's summertime.
Upstairs, sleeping in this shitty. I don't know how we slept there with mosquitoes and stained beds. So that was a little too funky.
And then we did the nightclub out there too, the Underground Club. Remember, that was down the road from the Mad Hatter. That was Bill's other club.
Right. Yeah, that place. Yeah, we used to pack that place out too. My brother actually spent yesterday, which is weird. I don't know what he was doing out there. But
if I said to you, between Hammerheads in Levittown, Detroit and Portchester, and Speaks, which one did you have the most fun at of those three?
They all had their special thing. I can't really. I would say they're all kind of pretty equal in my head. I mean, Speaks definitely the Long Island thing, because we did so well there. It kind of felt a little more New York or at home, and it was in New York instead of New Jersey. So I would say, and then Detroit had the whole vibe too with Larry Torr. We knew the owner that used to work at Speaks, and yeah, that was another great place to play. So it's hard to now nail down any one of them because they all had something special.
Lemoore in Brooklyn. What about that?
Lemoore in Brooklyn was such a well-known. The one in Queens too. The one in Queens was really big. But definitely, the Fountain Casino and Speaks, I kind of felt equal about all of them. I mean, Speaks was probably the most fun because it was in Island Park.
It felt very comfortable to play at Speaks, didn't it?
There was like a lot of people we knew. We had more friends there, so it was a little more fun playing there.
We played Speaks something like 91 times. You know that?
I remember every Thursday night.
Yeah, we did that for the summer of '78. But we played there. We did, if you add up the shows, because remember, Dee didn't sing the third set. So if you add the shows that you and me stood shoulder to shoulder just at Speaks, we were at almost 270 performances at Speaks, just alone, which is crazy. I mean, it's really crazy how much Speaks we did. I thought
we did weekends there sometimes too, which was
it was amazing. And I thought
Thursday, Friday, Saturday we didn't have to move gear.
What about Soap Factory?
Oh yeah, in Jersey, a lot of people. I hear about people. Hey, I hear that a lot. Like it seems like everybody in Jersey was at the Soap Factory at one point or another.
And that was huge. That place held 3,000 people too.
Of Speaks of Fort Lee or Jersey.
Yeah, people don't. New bands do not have any idea what it was like for us.
Yeah, that club scene. I don't think it's probably still happening now. Depends on who the band.
Nothing like that.
But nothing like that.
No, the drinking age was 18, Eddie. So come on.
18 helped. The 21. Luckily, we got signed when everything went to 21. Because that really sucked for bars.
Eddie, do you remember the night at Chaucer's Ale House when the truck got stuck and you tried to take the truck and it went into the cesspool? Like, what happened?
I didn't drive a stick, but I was pretty pretty well
lubricated,
well drunken that night. So, and then they said, "Go ahead." I was sitting in the truck, going, "I don't know how to drive a stick." I don't know why I thought I could help.
The truck fell through the parking lot.
Already in there. It
was in there already.
It was already in there. I mean, Elmo got it stuck. We were trying to get it out. I didn't get it stuck. I just sat. As soon as I sat down, like it sobered me up very quickly. It was like, I don't know how to do this. I just left, and Tony wanted to go ahead, let him go. So I just walked away.
What about that night that our truck got set on fire at Speaks?
Oh, that sucked. Yeah, we were playing.
We were doing Sweet Jane, and all of a sudden, someone went, "Your truck's on fire, man!" And they opened up the side door, and we look out. Fucking truck is a 50-foot flames.
I saw the flame. That was weird. And then that big fight at Speaks.
Oh yeah.
Where they destroyed Dee's car. And we lock ourselves in the club, and we hear somebody with a bat breaking his windshield.
You
used to park right close to the club, near the back.
Right. That was a Friday night because we were playing there for a weekend and Tony did something. Something
Yeah,
happened.
the guys from Whitestone.
Guys in Whitestone came down to defend a girl's honor,
Oh
right?
yeah, was it that? I think.
Yeah. Like somehow something happened. I have no idea. Did he ever tell you what happened? He never told me what
I
happened.
forgot what happened, but he just, it was one of those situations where, you know, he wanted to use the bouncers and the speaks and us to, you know, to get away with whatever he wanted to do. And, you know, sometimes, you know, he did some things that were, he's lucky he didn't get charges pressed against him.
No, but he almost got killed that night. They beat the shit out of him so bad they put him in the hospital.
Was he
And
hurt?
yeah, don't you remember we had to play with Bobby Rondinelli the next day?
Oh, that's right.
We
But,
rehearsed
you
with
know,
Bobby that afternoon.
that's what he used to look for. He used to get into stuff with people.
Yeah, people don't understand the grind that we lived in, what happened. But from 1976 to 1981, we basically worked 5 nights a week, every week. Very rarely took any time off except to rehearse. And it was every night, and you could work every night, and you could kill yourself every night. And that's why shoulder to shoulder, when people say, "How come you guys are so tight?" It's because we know each other so well. We've played for years and years and years. And Eddie, you know, you and me, our guitar tone evolved uniformly as time went on.
Right.
You know, with the
I
amps
was
and
like
everything.
keeping up with the latest stuff, so you know, for our guitar sounds. So it was always, you know, I'm still like that. I'm just a gear person. You know, some people just, you know, gravitate to that. But that thing with Tony, I remember I went outside and I was trying to stop stuff, and some couple of guys grabbed me. Somebody punched me in the head and said, "Stay out of it." And then, you know, I was like almost knocked out, but they didn't beat me up. But I did get punched in the head, you know, because you know, in a way, I felt bad for Tony because he was all these guys against him. But then again, there was it was like 10, 15 guys, you know, and but I didn't know what happened, but knowing how the nature of how he would get into these problems, and because the band was big, and because all the bouncers that play the clubs really liked us, you know, he used to use that to like be kind of as muscle, to be kind of to push his weight around.
Yeah, but also the guys, Zebras Road, who got injured in that fight too.
Yeah,
if you remember that, they were there hanging out that
you
night.
know, and it's cool to, you know, stand behind somebody and help them in a situation like that, but not if what they did was wrong, really wrong.
Yeah.
And in
So-
that case, I believe he did something that was really out of line with some girl or something, and yeah, that's what happened.
And Tony was replaced by Joey Markowski, who was replaced by Richie Teeter, rather, for about 2-3 months. And then Joey came in for a year, and then AJ came in. So we get AJ, which we kind of knew right away, right? We just knew he was just the right guy at the job. We signed the deal. So when I take you to Under the Blade, what are your memories of recording that album in England in that barn?
Well, when we started recording in that barn, that really sucked. That was, you know, I'm glad that didn't work out. And remember that guy who was, I remember with that sound truck. First of all, I don't know whose idea it was to record in a barn. You know, it was like this dumbest thing. I mean, it sounded kind of cool, but it was like, why record? And they had that mobile unit. I guess he wanted to use the mobile unit. Like, you know, screw the mobile unit. I was just recording the studio. They had a really nice studio. What was the name of that studio? I forgot.
But Dee had a fight with the guy.
Well, because we wanted to llisten back, and he said, "My ears are very delicate." And he had this shit on like volume 1, like us on volume 1, like the playback. Can you turn it up so we can hear it? No, my ears are very sensitive. But you're out, man. That was it. And the next day he was gone. He's lucky he didn't get beat up. You know, he should have been put on a catapult and just thrown across.
So we wound up doing that record in like 5 different studios, including Jethro Tull's studio, Maison Rouge. We did some recording there. We recorded all over the place. We recorded at that particular studio that you're talking about, which Dee hated so much he refused to put the name of the studio on the album. He said right. He kept the name of the studio off the record. And then we did the mobile unit. Then we did Maison Rouge and a bunch of different stuff. That's where you met Ozzy for the first time during the mixing in Maison Rouge, if I'm not mistaken.
Ozzy?
Yeah.
That was in London, wasn't it?
That was in London, yeah. So you were with Pete, and he introduced you to Ozzy?
near Kings Road it was.
Yeah, Kings Road. That's right.
Yeah, Ozzy came and said, "Oh, turn this up." And it was like it was like 2 in the afternoon. He was pretty well medicated.
Well, you couldn't understand Lemmy either, for that matter. I mean,
no, yeah, but it was interesting. You know,
so that record then tanks. Record company goes bankrupt. We go over there. We do the we do the Tube show. Did you think the Tube show was going to lead to the record deal while it was happening? What did you think?
I was hoping it would, but I wasn't sure. I was just glad that we were there, and it went so well, so good.
And that was a fun album, though. Can't Stop Rock and Roll, I thought.
Was that Under the Blade or Can't Stop?
That was Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Can't Stop Rock, Jimmy Page's place.
Oh, right. That's what town was that again?
That was in Cookham.
Cookham, right? It was like 3 old dudes in the pub. That was it was really out in the burbs.
Way out. I think everyone was so old. We brought the average age down to 92. I think.
Yeah, we had to walk to a mile to get to a pub with 3 old dudes like smoking and having a pint. It's like, so it was pretty boring, but it was a beautiful place to stay with the waterfall. That was Gus Dungeon's studio.
Yes, exactly.
And Jimmy Page bought it off of Elton John, him and Elton John.
So what do you have favorite songs from Can't Stop Rock and Roll?
I have a favorite. I don't know. I like all the songs. That was a really good album.
I mean, did you think I Am I Me was going to be a hit when Dee wrote it, when he presented it to us? Did you go, wow, that's a hit?
I was a little surprised about I Am On Me. But it was a big hit in England.
Yeah.
It's just 2-chord song.
But it was so different from everything else on that album.
It's true. It is,
yeah.
It was more poppy, sort of poppy, but it was kind of AC/DC kind of vibe to it. But Can't Stop has always been such a good song to do live. I mean, it really goes over so well.
Well, we had a very successful record in England. Then we come back to the United States with no support whatsoever from the record label. We get in those rent-a-cars and we drive all around the United States in those fucking rent-a-cars.
The Ugly Duckling
used car dealership. And yeah, so the Winnebago broke down from in between Salt Lake City and Phoenix, Arizona at 6 o'clock in the morning. And right. we pull into Raton, New Mexico, at one of the most Christian cities in the freaking world. We pull up in front of a diner. The Winnebago breaks down, totally breaks down. And I think I said, I'll go out there, but don't let anyone see Dee because we'll be murdered. So I said to Dee, don't look out the window. Don't look out the window. And I walked inside to the diner and I went, how y'all doing? We're the Southern Cross Band and our vehicle just broke down and I need to get the vehicle fixed. And they said, well, y'all got to call Pistol Man Gino at the Andy Get Your Gun bar across the street. So I went over to the Andy Get Your Gun bar and some guy, some Asian guy was there. He goes, oh, Pistol Man Gino, no, here. But here's his home number. And he gives me the guy's home number. And I call the guy up and I go, we're a Southern rock band. Our vehicle broke down. I understand you guys can help me. He goes, well, my friend owns the Ugly Duckling used car agency. And he goes, you can all call him and he'll help you. He'll set you up. So we dropped the Winnebago off at the Chevy dealership, at Happy Gonzalez's Chevy dealership, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
That amazing.
Yeah, Happy Gonzalez is, I don't know why I can remember the shit and I can't remember what I did yesterday, okay?
Ugly Duckling, I'll never forget.
Yeah, so
the logo was an ugly duck.
The guy goes, I can rent you these cars, but you can only use them down to Phoenix, and then I got to send people down and pick the car up. You got to rent a car from Avis or Hertz or whatever. So we drive, if you remember, we were on tour with Blackfoot and Crocus at the time.
Right.
And we had very specific instructions. On stage at 7, off at 7:29. Go 1 minute over, power gets cut. So we had very specific instructions, and we made it to the next show. And then we got the rent-a-cars, and we proceeded to drive all over the country in the 2 rent-a-cars. And that was amongst the craziest times of our lives, I think.
Yeah, that was tough. I don't know how looking back when we did it, I don't think people complained much. I mean, I don't remember complaining much. I was like, I guess that I was just happy we were playing.
Yeah, but you all did most of the driving. I didn't do any of the driving. So we had 8 guys in the car, 4 per each car.
Yeah.
And you guys were just like constantly, as soon as someone got tired, somebody else came in and drove. And
I don't think I drove much either. It was like mostly Mark, Charlie.
Charlie.
I think Mark did a lot of the driving. That was like his thing.
Right. So we went down to San Diego, then up to Riverside, California, back to LA. And then we drove from LA to Salt Lake City through Death Valley. If you remember, it was 116 degrees the day we drove through Death Valley. I'll never forget, because they said you got to turn off the air conditioner in the car.
There were signs that say turn off your AC.
Yeah, like, are you fucking kidding me? It's 116 degrees. We drove across the desert. We get to Salt Lake City, we play a show, and then we're sent down to Texas. We did Houston, Beaumont, and Austin. And do you remember that we pulled in the parking lot and there was thousands of girls at this club, and we said, man, finally things are breaking our way, and we find out that they were there because it was a male dancer review.
After us, the male review.
Before us. They opened.
Because they all left after.
They all left. The male reviewers, they left, and we're like, the club was almost empty. That was the Cardi's chain. There was 3 clubs, the Cardi's in Houston, Beaumont, and Austin. Then we drove 36 hours straight back to New York, played the Beacon Theater, headlined the Beacon.
Wow.
Got in a plane, flew to England, and then did the Monsters of Rock Festival tour with Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy and Ozzy. And
wasn't Shanker on that gig too?
No, I don't think Shanker was. I know it was Blue Oyster Cult, Thin Lizzy.
I remember Blue Oyster Cult.
It was Thin Lizzy's final shows ever.
Thin Lizzy, right? That's the
name. It was their last shows ever, even though they did their farewell show in England. It was their last show ever, including the Nuremberg show that we played in Germany. That was their last. Remember, we were all on stage during that performance. It was their very, very, very last show. Then we came back, got in a van, and drove out to Kansas City and did a tour with Queensryche.
Right, and they had
Silver Eagle.
They had a tour bus.
Yeah,
we had a van like one of those 9-passenger vans, and that really sucked.
Yeah, I said to the guys in Queensryche, I said, you realize? I said, how long have you guys been together? They go, a year. I said, how old are you guys? 18. How many shows have you done? 12. 1,200? No, 12. I said, you did 12 shows. Yeah, 3 with Ozzy, 3 with Def Leppard, 3 with this, 3 with AC/DC. I'm like, what the fuck? I said, let's look at the fairness level here. We're together, like at this point, like 10 years. You've been together a year. You get a multi-million-dollar record deal. We get a fucking shit sandwich for a record deal. You get a Silver Eagle tour bus. We got a fucking van.
I made friends with them real quick.
Yeah, we all did, because they let us sleep on that
bus a lot. Because they had Cavassier. I mean, they were hooked up.
They were hooked up. They were really nice guys. I mean, they were great guys,
but they were so innocent, young and innocent.
Yeah, so we did the tour with them, and then we hooked up with Dio, did all Canada. Remember?
Yeah.
Which was great. Dio was great.
Dio was great, except for that gigantic mountain stage that he had.
In Denver.
Remember that? There was very little room for us to play.
There was. I was stuck between the lion's paw and the microphone.
The worst one was Red Rocks, man. That really sucked ass. It was like a pit. The place was beautiful, but there was and it started pouring. We looked like we took a shower. Man. There was such little. I'm surprised we didn't complain. It was awful. It was truly awful. It was great to work with Dio and be on that tour.
Yeah, it was great.
But some stages were better than others. But Red Rocks was exceptionally horrible, especially the fact that it poured. It was raining like a mother.
It was bad. When we finished that tour, we sold 100,000 records, and then we signed with. Then we did Tom Werman came aboard, and we did Stay Hungry. So when we were doing Stay Hungry, just personally, when we were recording I Want to Rock, when we were recording We're Not Going to Take It, do you remember? Did you ever say to yourself, "These are hits," or did you go, "Whatever happens, happens"? How did you look at that?
I felt real good about Stay Hungry, like all the songs. Like I remember after rehearsal, listening to the songs, I said, "Oh, this is going to be really good." I just remember feeling really positive about it. You know, you never know which is the album that's going to do it for you. And that was the one that really did it for us. I mean, it was over the top.
Well, how does it feel having the guitar solos in one of the most famous songs of all time? We're Not Going to Take It, Eddie.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I did because it was a single, I did just a short sort of melody solo that goes with, some people, figured I'd do that. The harmonies were supposed to be, I wanted it to be like a 3-part harmony, like a Brian May kind of vibe. But they never, to this day, they never turned up the harmonies loud enough to create that vibe. You know, and you know, live, you know, at the end we do the guitar harmonies, but I wanted that throughout the whole solo because it was a theme solo that was, you know, based on the melody of the song.
Right.
When we did Still Hungry, then I got to do an extended version, which going back, if I was, I'm sure a lot of people say is, going back, I wish I would have done just a riffing solo instead of the, you know, harmony solo.
Right.
If I would have known they were never going to mix the, but you know, who knew that that song was going to be the one, you know?
But how did you feel? Because it's 1984, Van Halen's out, all these shredders are starting to happen. Did you feel pressure to be a shredder, or just said, I'm me. I just do what I do?
Yeah, at the time it didn't, because I felt it was a single, keep it short and sweet. You know, it wasn't supposed to be about, you know, an instrumental thing. You know, if I had to do it over again, yeah, I would have probably just ripped out on it instead of like I did on I Want to Rock, instead of like what I did. You know,
yeah,
like,
except people can sing your solo, Eddie. They can't sing Yngwie Malmsteen solo.
well, a lot of people say like Smoke on the Water, and that solo was the first thing. You know, guys starting out say that's the first things they learned, which is kind of cool. But I regretted it later on. I said, you know, I should have done like what we do live. I should have done that instead of the, you know, melodic 3-part harmony thing. But like I said, it was never mixed, and maybe people will understand now. But it was never mixed loud enough. It was supposed to be very Brian May-ish,
Right.
a very Queen effect, and it would have worked better if all 3 parts were equally, you know, mixed together in volume.
Right. Well,
So,
that obviously Come Out and Play didn't do what we expected it to do, and of course, Love Is for Suckers pretty much put the nail in the coffin for us, and we went our separate ways. How did you feel during that period of time that we were not together? That 12 years. Did you ever think it was going to get back together again? Did you not think it was going to get back?
I had
together?
a feeling we would get back together again.
Did you?
Because I knew we were all, you know, having a hard time. You know, where do you go after like you dedicate your life to music, and now you're in your 30s? You know, you're 30 something years old, and you got to go out and get a job. Like, you can't look under, you know, R for Rockstar one in the New York Times. You know, it just doesn't exist. So it's just one of those things that I always thought we were going to get back together. I said, I got a feeling, you know, things are going to get so bad that we're going to, you know, being broke is a good inspiration for getting back together. So I just had a feeling it was going to happen. Unfortunately, 9/11 was what made it really happen. But
yeah, I always thought that
I had a feeling we weren't done yet, which I'm glad we weren't, because we came back and we were bigger than ever. We weren't like we were.
When Mountain reformed, I remember thinking Leslie West. That was during the time of the movie Brokeback Mountain. We're broke, we're back, we're Mountain. You know, it's like, you know,
I get that one in.
You know, it's like everybody's going to come back. So when we came back, did you think it was going to be as big as I was hoping, but there was no way to predict what was going to happen.
I didn't, but Dee, and you know, thanks to Johnny over in Sweden, you know, he brought Dee out to Europe first, and he had a really great response. And he kept saying, you know, I plan to bring the band back here, and so the whole vibe was out there. But like you said, it was, you know, I wasn't sure it was going to be as big as it was, and then to find out that we're headlining all these festivals, these huge festivals, that we, you know, we used to be like 3rd or 4th on the bill to open in the daytime, and now we're headlining, you know, and even the one where like Yes and Jethro Tull opened for us.
No.
You know, I remember listening to Jethro Tull and Yes say, I know they weren't happy about it, you know, especially the guys in Yes. They weren't. I spoke to Chris Squire,
yeah,
but they weren't in too good a mood about like opening for us. You know?
I felt bad. I was like,
bad too.
I was like, what the fuck? We used to see him in high school. I remember when TB Thunderbutt, he used to play that Fragile album all the time. Remember?
Yeah, I mean those albums. I knew those albums so well, especially, you know, Yes and Tull.
Yeah, Tull.
And you know, to this day, I still tell people, if you would have told me that Yes and Tull would open for us someday, or for a band I was in, you know, I would have never believed it. Yeah. So part of me said, I feel bad, but not so bad.
Yeah. So the drummer for Tull.
Hello. Yeah. Guess who's opening for
So the drummer for Tull was Don Perry, and Don Perry and I used to jam back in the Fountain days, you know, the hippie days. Right. So Don Perry, the last I'd heard of Don Perry, he was in a Jethro Tull cover band back in the 70s, and now he's the Jethro Tull drummer. So now he's playing with Jethro Tull. And
Jethro Tull. I thought he was
no, he was playing with Tull. Don became Tull's drummer for 22 years, and at that Sweden Rock Festival, you know, the one that we played where they opened up for us.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the commissary getting some lunch, and this old English guy walks up to me and he goes, "Excuse me, is your name John Segal?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Don Perry told me to walk over and say hello." And it was Ian. He sent Ian over to say hi to me.
Really?
Yeah, it was funny. I turned around, there's Don waving. I hadn't seen him since Central Park days, you know, back in the 70s. The Christmas album, did it surprise you how well it did?
Yeah, it's always a surprise. You never know when you put something out if it's going to be the one or it's going to do. And also, like, I noticed a lot of people starting to do Christmas songs after we did that.
Yeah, after we were told, "Oh, you're crazy. No one wants to do Christmas."
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of something to do for fun that we came up with. We were playing in Starland. It was around, we said, "Hey, we should do a Christmas album." And it became real. And
I would have to say that to me, the most surprising and the most satisfying part of the reunion, besides the fact that everybody just got along really well, was South America was unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yeah.
You can't explain it to people.
No, especially Argentina, the crowd in Argentina. Like, that's the first, I remember being thrown off because they even knew they sang the guitar solos to us. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of my solos are theme solos. So, like the beginning of the price, they're going, I could just stop playing. You know, and then when the solo said they're not going to be able to do this, especially with the run, they go like they're actually doing that fucking part too. You know, I'm hearing like 5,000 people going. I'm like,
yeah, they when I did Can't Stop Rock and Roll, they were singing my guitar solo and I don't play it note for note. And I think I walked back to you and I said, if you're not playing note for note, don't walk up to the front because they're going to fuck you up, man. They know your solo's better.
They sang the solos. I never seen a crowd like that. You know, I mean, South America is, they're so
passionate
into it. You know, it's amazing. But Argentina, that was amazing. I remember it threw me off because I thought it was an effect. Like something happened with an effect.
You know what, Eddie? It was as close to Beatlemania as we were ever going to feel when we played.
That, and we played in La Paz too. It was kind of like Beatlemania, except it sucked. It was 12,000 feet above.
Couldn't fucking breathe.
Yeah,
you know.
But, you know, as far as even getting there, remember the cars they were trying to bring.
What about, let me ask you this. What is your memory of the last show in Mexico?
Unfortunately, that last show was terrible. You know, I mean, we played well, but the weather was so bad and it was muddy. It was like a Woodstock mud fest, you know, like just reminded me of that kind of like when, you know, one of those festivals where everything just goes to shit because it's all the rain. It didn't stop raining. I mean, the place was packed, nobody left, and the people were there and they were into the music and we played well. You know, I thought we'd play fine, you know. But it was uneventful. I'm still kind of upset that was the last show. That wasn't the way to go.
I thought the most disappointing show for me that last run was the Jersey show because the weather was terrible.
That too.
And that was you know, the show with Kiss, the last show. I mean, we played to a full house. I almost felt bad for Kiss because it started raining after we finished. Yeah. And half the people were leaving because of the rain and the mud was terrible. So
you mean in Mexico?
In Mexico, rather, Kiss was playing to probably half the size because the rain was so bad.
It was so bad.
You know, the rain was terrible, and people don't understand these outdoor shows. You're susceptible to the weather. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. We had that problem with Sweden Rock, the very first show. The weather was terrible, and it really sucks when the weather's terrible. Really,
a lot of power problems too.
power problems, and it sucks for bands, you know, and bands like us. I mean, think about this: bands like us, Kiss, Maiden, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Whitesnake. We're trusted to entertain 100,000 people, and that's what we do for a living. You know, it's an art form that most people don't understand. That we were fortunate enough to evolve into, to be able to do this. You know, Kiss does it, and Whitesnake does it, and Def Leppard does it, and AC/DC does it, and Judas Priest does it, and Iron Maiden does it, and we do it. And it's an honor to be able to put ourselves in that group of people that can entertain 100,000 kids. And we could do it tomorrow if we wanted to. You know, if the concerts ever came back, we could do it.
I just wish the last show would have been like that one show in Sweden Rocks, that one show that.
Yeah.
The last time we played Sweden Rocks was one of those perfect nights. The weather was beautiful, and the stage sound was amazing. It was just the one time I could hear everything. It was just one of those nights, you know. And that's the kind of, that would have been a good last show if we could have imported that to Mexico, you know, with the weather and everything. I mean, you know, the thing is that, you know, we stopped, we went out on top, and we were still headlining. It wasn't like we waited. Yeah. We didn't drag the name through the mud like there's some bands, you know, they start playing smaller places.
Right.
You know, we left, we were still headliners when we decided to, this was the last tour. So it's a good way to stop, but, you know, it would have been a show in, some people say New York, but, you know, a big show somewhere, like a Sweden Rocks thing, for the last show would have been a little more entertaining or, you know, meaningful or eventful, you know?
Well, look, we came back. I thought we were only going to last, you know, like a year or two. We wound up doing 125 festivals. Do you know that? We headlined.
But that's good to know. It was like 14 years.
Yeah, 14 years, did 125 festivals. We headlined probably 100. And if we didn't headline, we were right below the headliner for the rest of them, 125. And Eddie, as I close this, I just want to say that unlike most people in their lives who don't have the I don't know the word I'm looking for here, the luxury or the history of knowing that their dreams could be realized, their dreams as a teenager could be realized. Most people do not follow the dreams they had as a teenager. Okay, they just don't. But you and I had these dreams as teenagers, and we had these dreams as high school buddies, and we lived this dream, Eddie.
I know. It's an amazing thing. I mean, I feel I'm very grateful to it because, like you said, it doesn't happen to everybody.
No, it doesn't. And I don't know what the future brings, because who knows? Like, I didn't know if the band was going to get back together again. So maybe under certain circumstances we play, maybe we don't play. But the lasting legacy is that we made an awful lot of people really happy.
Yeah, and it was a real good run. I mean, that was to play 14 years on top, being headliners, staying at the, you know, the accommodations that they, you know, when you're the headliner, you get treated the best. You know, you're the headliners.
Yeah.
So, you know, I thought that was something that every band deserves or wants to have in their career. So the fact that we were able to do that is very satisfying, as far as saying, hey, you know, we went out on top, like Seinfeld. You know what I'm saying? It was that kind of vibe, you know. So I just wish the last show was somewhere else, you know.
Who knows if it will be our last show? Who knows? Anyway, well, everybody.
I never say never, because you never know.
Never say never. So my guest this week, Eddie Ojeda, my partner, standing shoulder to shoulder with him since high school, but, you know, through thousands and thousands of performances. Nobody knows him better than me musically. Nobody knows me better than him musically. We played on some great records. We made an awful lot of people happy, and we followed our dreams. And I consider that to be a very good fortunate. So I'd like to thank you so much for being on the show. And I want you to say my love to Clara, please.
Thank you.
And thank you. And to everybody listening to The French Connection, Beyond the Music, produced by Podcast One, available on Spotify, available on Apple Music. If you want to send an email to me, send it to askjayjayts@gmail.com. Stay tuned. Every week we have new guests, and they're always surprising, and they're always great. And tonight they were legendary. Thank you, Eddie. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Likewise, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks
for having me.
All right, bye.